Welcome to the video about the type 4. Just one disclaimer. This is my personal take on the type 4. I mean, there are facts. Jen wrote up like a script for it, as she usually does. She does a lot of the research on the side because she's the one that studied the Enneagram for many more years than I did. But also, I'm going to be interjecting my personal anecdote. Here it goes. Your experience might not be the same as mine. The spiritual sin of a type 4 is envy. Envy as differentiated from jealousy though, because if jealousy is more like being protective over something that you already have in your possession, envy is more stemming from this feeling of lack. 4s have this void inside of them. They feel like they're tragically flawed and they're always feeling like something essential inside of them is missing. I look around and see other people and I guess I perceive them in their completeness, their wholeness. This is actually pretty sad because 4s will look at other people and feel like they are so complete that they will never be able to understand the 4. But the greatest desire of a 4 is to be seen and to be known and to be understood. As children, 4s grew up kind of feeling misunderstood. 4s are always fighting to be their truest self. They're always fighting to get in touch with their authentic core. And as a result, 4s have this really complicated perspective of themselves because on one hand, they're trying really hard to be themselves and they count authenticity as a thing of very high value, and so in that sense they feel like they are very superior. And then on the other hand, they feel incredibly inferior because the more they get to know themselves, the more deeply embarrassed they are of themselves. They also have this very deeply rooted fear of abandonment, and that really ties into this wanting to be known and understood and seen, because for a 4 it's like they're always looking for their true self, their authentic self, and they also really crave someone understanding and acknowledging and seeing that core, that authentic core. But at the same time, they are afraid that when someone really gets to know them and really catches a glimpse of that authentic core, they will be abandoned. The 4 is actually the most complex type on the Enneagram because there's this constant war very deep inside. And that really manifests itself in some problematic ways. There's a lot of 4s do this thing called the push and pull dance, and I am 100% guilty of this and Amherst in my time at college. Because 4s have this fear of being abandoned, they want to go on the offense and they want to be the one to abandon first, because they don't want to be the ones abandoned. So one day they might seem very close and openly affectionate, and then the next they might seem very aloof and distant. Basically, I want to be known, I want you to see who I really am. But at the same time, I'm so scared that you're going to abandon me if you see who I really am, so I'm going to abandon you first. And that feeling of abandonment, I can very vividly recollect my earliest memories as like a 4 or 5-year-old, and feeling like my parents were not going to pick me up from school. I distinctly remember every time the school bell would ring and class was over for the day, I would run to the gates. Like there were these gates at the playground where you can see into the parking lot and you can see the cars that drive in. And I would just wait there until my eyeballs were about to fall out, waiting to see my dad's white van pull up. And as each car that pulled up wasn't that white van, there was this sense, this deep sense inside of me that something was wrong, that my parents were never going to pick me up, that I was going to be left here abandoned. And I would bawl, I would cry every single day in the playground, waiting at the fence. I know it's really like kind of comical to think about now, but as a child, that's like my earliest, purest memory of feeling this panic. They also have this desire to be noticed from afar by their peers, to be that sparkly, shiny thing, that person that's different. And that's what 4s are really characterized by, is that constant forging and reforging of their identity, which ends up with a lot of creativity. A lot of 4s are creative people. They're very vividly imaginative. They're gifted in like design and music and fashion and writing. We are still in the shame and feeling triad. 4 is the last one, 2s, 3s, and 4s. And 4s are 100% inward facing when it comes to feelings. There's this phrase of 4s don't have feelings, they are their feelings. You might find it easy to write off a 4 as being overly dramatic or overly sensitive, but many times the level of depth that a 4 can reach is beyond what you can perceive from the outside. They're actually the most empathetic people and friends that you could actually have. I don't mean to say this to toot my own horn. I'm really saying this. I have a lot of 4 friends as well, and because 4s are able to sit with a lot of the more uncomfortable or darker emotions. 4s are really the friends that you want to call up when you're going through grief or some very turbulent times in your life. So how can you love a 4? And I know this is asking a lot of you, but you have to learn how to detach from their emotional hurricane, but also not withdraw from them completely. Another way to love a 4 is to not tell them that their feelings are wrong. Some of the most hurtful things that I've heard and still stick with me to this day that I've heard from my very close friends. Things like, oh, you're overly sensitive, you're such a diva, you're being overly dramatic. There were different iterations of it throughout my life, but it hurts. It really hurts. Yes, please be gentle with your 4s. When a 4 is stressed, they are going to go to the negative side of a 2, which means they're going to be very external facing, wanting a lot of validation, being very overly dependent and clingy, because they kind of fall into this victim mentality of, oh my goodness, I need to be rescued, I need to be constantly affirmed that I am worth loving. But when a 4 is in health, they will go to the healthy side of a 1, which means that they walk life in much more measured ways, and that even if they feel something, they don't have to just throw it all out and vomit it onto someone. So the last thing is the spiritual growth aspect. My darkest relationships have occurred when I was expecting the other person to completely know me and understand me and comprehend me, to hold me in that knownness. And how can I ask a person to do what only the Holy Spirit can? I think that's what has been the most convicting in my journey of learning about being a 4. And once I kind of got that perspective on it, was like something shifted. It was suddenly I wasn't wanting or expecting people to completely understand me and see me and know me. It was more relying and clinging on to God, asking Him to see me, asking Him to show me that He knows me through and through, that He's seen me and yet He still loves me. I hope this video did comfort you and encourage you if you are a 4. That was really hard to do. Thank you so much for watching as always, and see you in the next triad. Bye!